Game 5 finals recap. Durant comes back. He's cooking. He's looking like an MVP out there. Then he goes down, and to the rescue, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. The wounded Warriors prevail in Toronto, Teddy. News of Durant playing drove that line down to good 3 points. Even some outlets, Teddy, had those Warriors a favorite at game time. With under 3 minutes to go, a 6-point lead for those Raptors dissipates the heart of a champion. Those wounded Warriors, Teddy, we're getting ready for a game 6.
Yeah, and there's so much to talk about for this ballgame. Let's start with the point spread, all right? The books got bombed on this game, absolutely bombed, every bit as bad as Game 3 when it was nothing but Raptors money to move from 5.5 to 2.5, and Toronto won the game going away. Well, you talked about some of the books moved with Golden State as a favorite. What happened was a bunch of the books moved to Golden State as a favorite, got bet up to 1, got bet up to 1.5, and then right before tip-off, wise guys poured in with a little bit of Toronto money. So guess what? The books lost Raptors bets and they lost Warriors bets. And that's always a bad thing, of course, with Golden State winning by exactly 1. There were plenty of bettors that didn't matter which side they had. They're able to cash. Not a good result for the house at all. And that's putting it mildly. So,
Teddy, let's go over.
You know how it goes. I mean, how much of this, you watch, if you watch enough NBA Finals, it was over last night. You know, the Warriors made their run and they led the whole game. And then the Raptors, Kawhi, scored 10 in a row, and the crowd's going nuts, and there's 3 minutes left, and that game was over, all right? Toronto's about to win a title, and then Nick Nurse goes, oh, let me call timeout. That may be the worst timeout in the history of the NBA. I mean, it cost them a title last night, period. Your team has all – Golden State was done. Stick a fork in them, done. Toronto with all the momentum. Crowd going nuts. I tweet. Looks like it's over. And, of course, what happens? Nurse calls the timeout. The Warriors did what I thought they were going to do in the last 3 minutes. They hit 3 shots in the last 3 minutes. Splash Brothers got a splash. 3 3-pointers. Toronto didn't do anything. They didn't score. You know, they had the non-call on when Gasol went to the basket and got fouled and didn't get the call. All right, you know. You had Kawhi throwing up bricks, Lowry throwing up bricks, and the final few possessions wasn't pretty for Toronto. I worry a lot about how the Raptors are going to respond to this. The markets don't seem too worried, though, in a series where the road team has now won straight up each of the last 4 ball games.
Yeah, Ted, let's talk a little bit about that because you're absolutely right. I mean, we've all been in that sporting environment, even if you're not even in the sporting environment in any walk of life, when you're rattled, when the hope is gone, the crowd is electric, you're up 6 points. And you know what the Warriors are thinking about on defense? Yes, they're champions. Yes, they want to get a stop, but they're wobbly. It's like a standing 8 count out there going, I hope they miss this next shot because if they make it, it's going to be a wrap. Now you call the timeout. Steve Kerr gets the team around and says, look, we can still do this. Get a drink of water, take a deep breath. Let's go out there and have a good defensive possession. And it all went down the stretch. And even having said that, Teddy, because you're right, that Gasol non-call was kind of interesting at that point. But even after that, you had the half-court turnover where Steph Curry, goes around behind the back, goes to Draymond Green. They call that. And then you also had the bailout call, which, yes, it was a moving screen on DeMarcus Cousins, don't get me wrong. But in that moment, in a championship moment, most of the time, I'm not going to call that. So you had all the looks that you wanted out there, which really made it interesting. And then how about DeMarcus Cousins? Not even in the game plan in that game, Teddy. Forced in and comes in the first couple minutes. And what does he have, like 9 points in 4 minutes? Amazing.
Well, DeMarcus Cousins can score, but DeMarcus Cousins came this close to being the GOAT. Not GOAT greatest of all time. GOAT like the GOAT, you screwed up the game. You know, he had the offensive interference that cost him a basket. He had the defensive goaltending. The only basket that Toronto scored during that entire late stretch was on the goaltending call off on the Lowry hoop, which was Cousins. And then it gets called for the moving screen on Golden State's last offensive possession. You know, this close to being run out of Golden State as the GOAT of the ballgame. Obviously, being that the last shot for Lowry, Green got a piece of it. Draymond Green was phenomenal. And Green actually kept the Warriors in the game in the fourth before Splash Brothers got hot. But again, Game 4 was all about Toronto. We know what Golden State brings to the table. And Toronto brought the energy and the intensity, and they won Game 4 going away, and I'm impressed. Last night, the final 3 minutes, Golden State did what we expected them to do. They hit a couple of threes. They played a little D. But it was Toronto choking it away. I wonder how they respond to that, because they literally should. I mean, again, I don't put out a lot of tweets where I'm like, oh, they're going to win, specifically for this reason. And boy, Twitter wasn't happy with me. You mushed. I mushed myself. But that was about the Raptors giving it away. As Warriors took it, but Toronto gave it away.
No, you're absolutely right, Teddy. And sending out the tweets there, we've all been there, done that before. And there's not a person sitting there watching that game did not think it was over when Kawhi hit that short jumper to go up 6. It was electric. The momentum completely shifted out there. There was nothing left to do. And then you're right. Those Splash Brothers come back and hit a couple threes, and here we go. Talk about clutch out there. Because, look, if one of those first 2 threes doesn't go down, they lose that ball game. We understand that. Just an amazing stuff. And in the sports betting industry that we're in, Teddy, and in the content business, in June, thank you, Warriors, for winning, because now we get to talk about a Game 6 and maybe even a Game 7, Teddy, an extra week of content. So we do thank you on that, but we'll keep you posted here at SBRodds.com and sportsbookreview.com all week long in the NBA Finals. We're going to talk a little bit of interesting home runs, Teddy, because if I remember quite a few weeks ago when we were going over the Major League Baseball teams throughout the season, he said, I'm going to take a look at this Phillies team because I think there's going to be some overs in that ballpark. Well, how about last night? The Rockets' red glare, Teddy, the home runs bursting in air, 13 blasts last night in Philadelphia. A rainy night, but I live just outside the city, Teddy. It was muggy. It was hot. That ball was flying.
Yeah, it sure was. And it's funny because you think about this record, okay? 13 is a record. The previous record was 12. And the record of 12 was set twice by the same 2 teams, Tigers and White Sox. I can't believe this record isn't a Coors Field record, and it's still not a Coors Field record with 13 bombs last night. But obviously, if you had the over, well, not too much of a sweat. Cashed by the 4th inning. Those are always nice when it happens. Though we've seen under money in Philadelphia today. I don't know if we're going to see much more of it, though. That market has turned around a little bit over the course of the last half hour or so.
Yeah, Teddy, you get the full steam here in Philadelphia as well, too, when you take a look at it, because a lot of their bullpen arms are down. So you get those young pitchers that are that AAA quality, maybe on the major league level, and you get a night last night. It's no surprise. And we also knew that the Arizona Diamondbacks coming in hot, and they rake lefties and righties alike. It was interesting yesterday. How about this, Teddy? Ryu dominates, but the pen lets him down. We talked about yesterday about the Dodgers, bats going a little bit cooler, but getting great starting pitching and fantastic bullpen action. Well, the bullpen goes down yesterday. Ryu goes 6 innings, 1 earned run, exactly what you thought he would do with an ERA now of 1.36 on the season. Canning, the youngster we talked about, who was good yesterday as well. 6 innings, 3 earned runs, good for a quality start. But Mike Trout's 2-run blast in the 7th inning gives them the victory. Dodgers closed, Teddy, as high as 185 on the road there in the Battle of L.A.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the totals with the Dodgers right now. Because, again, this is a team that was an over machine 2 weeks ago. They had cashed to 8-1-1 to the over in a 10-game span. And the only under came by a hook. Well, 2 things have happened since then. One is that we've seen steadily the Dodgers' baseline total get bet up. There was 7.5, 7.5 2 years ago. And last year was more like 7.5 and 8. Now we're seeing 8.5s and 9s routinely in Dodgers games. Yesterday was 8.5 bet up to 9. Well, there's a big difference between a total of 9 and a total of 7.5 in an MLB game. Last night's game, explosion, bullpen meltdown, everything you need for an over, except the over didn't cash because the total's 9, not 7.5 anymore. Dodgers now 9-1-1 to the under in their last 11, even after last night's bullpen meltdown.
Yeah, we like to say that marine layer out there, Teddy, in L.A., keeping the ball down. But you're right. We'll keep an eye on those Dodgers as they move along. Let's talk a little bit of NFL football here. 2019 NFL season team preview on that betting show. Those Indianapolis Colts. Colts are 14-1 to win the 2019 championship, 7-1 to win the AFC, and the team total 9.5. A little bit juicy here in New Jersey out of DraftKings at -130. Colts finished 10-6 last year after going 4-2, and what a nice rebound it was. Isn't it interesting, Teddy, which we talked about a team yesterday that struggles to keep their quarterback upright, and then you have Frank Wright of the Colts saying, you know what, that's my number one priority here. Let's not get our quarterback killed. They go through a 5-game stretch, Teddy, where they don't even allow a sack, and you saw the incremental steps that Indianapolis took as the season went on, even winning a road playoff game. Came to a halt there versus the Kansas City Chiefs, but they are getting better. They're loading up on defense in the draft. They add another wide receiver in Devin Funchess. I like where this is going. Number one, I like Frank Reich as a head football coach. I think he's doing wonderful job on offense there. I think they have a good GM in place building that defense now. There's a lot to like about these Indianapolis Colts, and it always starts with, Teddy, keep the quarterback safe and healthy. You're going to win some football games.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to pick the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl. The Patriots go to the Super Bowl on a pretty consistent basis from the AFC. Indy's my team this year. I think Indy has everything that it takes to be a Super Bowl team. You look at the numbers last year, 0.3 yards per play better than their opponents. They outgained them slightly. 0.3 yards per rush better than their opponents. Again, they outgained them slightly. Andrew Luck, QB rating of 98.7 last year, opponents 93.5. We'll talk about those two numbers. So it wasn't a huge differential between Luck and his opponents, but Indy's passing offense was good, and their passing defense was good. They were +2 in turnovers last year. It wasn't all turnovers that led to their success. They did have a very easy schedule last year. This year, the schedule closer to league average, but still easier than the average schedule. Now, we talk about what they did in the offseason. They were relatively quiet. No first-round draft choice. They had a couple of moves in free agency. They really only signed 3 free agents from other teams. 2 of them are name players. Devin Funchess at the wide receiver position and Justin Houston at defensive end. Those are 2 guys who can help this year. Playmaking wide receiver and a pass rusher. Worked on as you talked about, defensively in the draft. 7 of their 10 draft choices were on defense. And they traded out of the first round. They still got a first rounder in cornerback, Rock Ya-Sin, who's a guy out of Temple who's, nothing but upside. I love Paris Campbell as another weapon. You talk about Funchess as the big receiver and Campbell as a speedy guy for Luck to throw to. That's a nice little duo that they bring in. Of course, one of the things that was interesting about Indy, they fired their offensive line coach. They only gave up 18 sacks last year. They fired their OL coach after the season. They brought back the legendary offensive mind, Howard Mudd, who was the OL coach during their glory years under Peyton Manning, and then brought in Clayton Adams as the specific offensive line coach. So interesting moves in that regard, but definitely worth noting. All right, this team has the most salary cap space in the league by a wide margin. They can still make moves. If someone gets hurt, they can replace him. And they're going to have a ton of cap space in 2020 as well. So, Indy, more than most teams, has flexibility at this stage of the game. And, of course, you talked about Frank Reich. Look, we saw it last year. It was pretty clear. Frank Reich was the brains behind Philly's Super Bowl run, not Doug Peterson. Indy got a whole lot better when he got there last year. Nothing but upside for this Colts team. I am very bullish on Andrew Luck and Indianapolis in 2019.